leaving them for dead. Later today, Joanne Dennehy will be sentenced for the murder of 3 men in Peterborough and the attempted murder of 2 men in Hereford. She'll be joined in the dock by former Kington man Gary Stretch, also found guilty of the attempted murder of Robin Bereza and John Rogers in Hereford in April, and of helping Dennehy dump the bodies of her first 3 victims. So let's focus on that story for a moment before we broaden the debate out into the punishment side of things. Nicola Goodwin is covering the story for us. What's going to happen today then, Nicola?
Dennehy and Stretch are due to be sentenced at the Old Bailey in London. That's the Central Criminal Court. Now, Dennehy pleaded guilty to murdering the 3 men in Peterborough and the attempted murder of Robin Bereza and John Rogers in Hereford back in April. Stretch was found guilty of the attempted murder of the 2 men in Hereford and also of helping Dennehy to dump the bodies of her first 3 victims. That was after a trial at Cambridge Crown Court. They'll be sentenced alongside Leslie Layton and Robert Moore, both from Cambridgeshire, who were also found guilty of helping Dennehy. It was a sunny day in April when Dennehy and Stretch left Kington for Hereford. Dennehy told Stretch that she wanted to have her fun, and he drove her to the city to look for more victims. First, she attacked local runner and former firefighter, 68-year-old Robin Bereza in West Failing Street. He managed to stagger home and alert the police, giving them a crucial description of Dennehy. It was then that Herefordshire police realised that they were looking for a serial killer. By now, the car had moved on to Golden Post in South Wye, where just 9 minutes later, Dennehy stabbed 56-year-old John Rogers 40 times.
And I suddenly felt what I thought was a really heavy punch in the small of my back. And then I turned round. I thought it was probably one of my mates or neighbours messing about, you know. And when I turned round, I saw this woman and she just kept stabbing me in the chest. She said something to the effect of, my boyfriend told me to do this. And she also said, oh, look, you're bleeding. I'd better do some more. And I think I said, just leave me alone, please. Please leave me alone. But she didn't. She just carried on. Well, I was just waiting for it to stop, really. And then when it did finally stop, I just thought, well, this is it. I'm going to die. Because there was loads and loads of blood.
John Rogers spent 5 days in intensive care, but he's now recovering back at home. He was found by a passer-by and saved by paramedics. Robin Bereza, he managed to stagger home, and the information that he gave the police led them to Dennehy and the vehicle that she was in. Now, within 1 minute of putting the details out over the police radio, Dennehy was found with John Rogers' dog in Newton Farm and arrested. With her was Mark Lloyd, and knowing his link to Gary Stretch, the police realised that the other men could be heading back towards Kington. Armed police and the Force helicopter eventually found and arrested them in Amley. Mark Lloyd told the BBC that Dennehy and Stretch were determined to find victims.
Find me a victim, find me a man, find me a man. And within 30 yards, she's seen this poor man walking across the road with a dog. Gary's gone, will he do? She's out the car and bang, straight on, no hesitation.
You saw her stab him?
Yeah, at least 20 times. I mean, the poor man didn't have a chance. I was amazed when he made it to his front door. But my last image of him was him lying on the right-hand side of the road. I thought he was dead, on his stomach. And then she's got in the car, leaned over to him, said thanks, kissed him on the cheek, and then said they had a huge argument about, why did you pick him for? He got away, I don't want a woman, don't want a kid. And then Gary's gone, right, I'll find you another one. And we've gone down Brayton Road, straight over Asda's roundabout. All this time now I'm beginning to kind of go into my shell, put my hoodie up and all that. And the second one was even worse than the first one. He's just pulled up, bloke's walking the dog down by Golden Post, and she was just all over that man. I mean, literally 30, 40 punches. He was fighting back. She was just completely stabbing him all the time. I've kind of closed my eyes then. And then about a minute later, I just remember opening my eyes and Joe's in the front with this dog, absolutely terrified. And then about 10 minutes later, I can hear all the police sirens and all that. And that was the end of the day, really.
Superintendent Ivan Powell from Herefordshire Police has told us that they believe that more people in Hereford would have been attacked and probably killed if Dennehy and Stretch had not been arrested. At an earlier sentencing hearing, Dennehy told the court, "I'm not sorry for the murders, but I am sorry for the attempted murders." Some good news this morning though, Howard. John Rogers is a professional musician. He's just been able to start playing his guitar once more as he continues his recovery. Robin Bereza has also been able to return to work, and both men and their families will be at the Old Bailey today to hear the sentencing.
Nicola Goodwin with the details. It all comes in the week that the murderers of soldier Lee Rigby were sentenced. Michael Adebolajo was given a whole life term. Michael Adebowale sentenced to life with a minimum of 45 years for the same offence. Such high-profile cases have left many people asking what punishment could ever fit these crimes and what would act as an effective deterrent. The high-profile cases have led the UKIP candidate for the West Midlands, Jim Carver, to tell BBC Hereford and Worcester that a discussion on the death penalty should be revived.
From my own experience, when I worked in London many years ago, I actually worked with a guy who was a reformed, serious criminal. He'd been to prison twice for armed robbery, and one day we had the discussion, and he'd reformed. I mean, he hadn't offended for must have been 25 years, and we had a serious discussion one day about the death penalty. And, you know, he said to me, he said, Jim, he said, the fact of the matter is, he said, when the death penalty was abolished, it gave carte blanche to us serious criminals to be able to sort of go ahead and do what we like, and knowing the worst thing that's going to happen to us was that we were going to be sent to prison for a period of time.
Paul West is the former Chief Constable of West Mercia Police and the Bishop of Worcester's advisor on penal affairs. He's sitting in the studios listening to the story this morning. Paul, with the positions you've held and the one you currently hold, what's your stance on, first of all, on whole life sentences? A good thing?
Well, none of this is a good thing, is it? You know, we're in a position, sadly, where today we're hearing of two, I mean, it's really extreme cases. I think we're all sadly familiar with the case of Lee Rigby, but I've got to say, this is the first time I've heard in detail the graphic nature of these stabbings in Herefordshire. And, I mean, it's just appalling, isn't it? It's appalling. So I think we need to first say we're talking here about the real extremes of violent crime. Now, you know, what's a suitable sentence in those cases? It's got to be a very, very extreme sentence, hasn't it? And hence, whole life tariffs were given out the other day in relation to certainly the main protagonist in London. And obviously, we're all waiting to see what's going to happen today. But, you know, these are very, very extreme cases. And, you know, how can a punishment fit that sort of crime?
Well, many would say, and certainly judging from the press reaction this week and reaction we get on texts and emails here, that capital punishment would be the correct punishment really here, because it is so extreme, and also there's such cut and dried cases. There's absolutely no doubt that these were the perpetrators of the crimes, and to hang them would be or certainly capital punishment would be the right outcome here. What would you say to that?
Well, you'll never hear me arguing in favour of capital punishment. I think if you go down that route, your society becomes as barbaric as the people who you're trying to deal with. You know, people talk about an eye for an eye, and you're not suggesting for 1 minute, surely, that society should respond in the way that these people have, you know, by stabbing people 40, 50 times in that latter case.
I can hear people shouting at the radio now, but why would we put them up at Her Majesty's pleasure? For a life that Adebolajo and Adebowale, it would be something like £2 million per person to keep those in prison for their lifetime. And for one of them, there's no parole. There's no way that they'll ever be reformed. There's no reform here. This is just keeping them away from the rest of society. That's going to cost us £2 million.
I completely understand that, and I think that's a different argument. I think the pure economic argument, setting aside the emotion of things, would say, you know, if you've got one option, whatever it is, whatever the options are, one option which can be dealt with in a day and costs, you know, X pounds, compared to one which lasts a lifetime and costs millions. If you're purely basing it on economics, there's a clear answer there, isn't there? But this isn't just about economics. This is about morals. It's about the nature of society. It's about civilization. You know, these are huge issues, and it just, you know, it certainly prompts a good and I think a valid debate when we have two such extreme cases in such close proximity.
Paul, many thanks for coming in to talk to us this morning. Paul West, former Chief Constable of West Mercia Police and the Bishop of Worcester's advisor on penal affairs.